Monday morning, and I'm Kimberly D'Souza here with you. And we have a guest. Actually, we're going to be talking to the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly. We're going to be talking to Mr. Kelvon Morris. Mr. Morris, good morning. Can you hear me?
Hi, good morning, Kimberly. Good morning, all of Trinidad and Tobago.
How are you this morning, Mr. Morris? How is Tobago?
It's quite overcast this morning, but we are enjoying the weather all the same.
Right. I know we were also under a yellow alert. Well, Mr. Morris, let's jump right in. You were able to retain your seat by 3 votes, of course. And what do you think gave you the upper hand in this election?
Well, I would have never left the ground. I continue to work even in the midst of a 6-6 deadlock. And, you know, the persons and the residents in the electoral district would have found favor in my representation.
Okay, but so you said that you were on the ground. So from January to now, because of course you would have won this seat in January, and then you had a little bit about a 10-month or 11-month period to really sink it in. So what exactly were you working on, you know, just to ensure, because remember this was one of the seats that was also reconstructed a bit. So what did you really have to work on to ensure that your residents or the constituents voted for you again in December?
Well, we would have implemented a number of initiatives that, you know, really spoke to the needs of the residents. We would have had initiatives such as the food and clothing bank right very quickly into my election as the representative. We initiated the food and clothing bank. We also initiated something called a district contingency fund. And what this district contingency fund did was to pool resources from residents and Tobagonians alike. And we would have utilized that for our social protection initiatives, such as small home improvement support, educational support, buying devices for parents who were in need, and that kind of thing. So we really kept focused on the residents. We kept focused during that period of really meeting the needs of the residents. And we would have continued to work. We had something also called the Sunday Meals on Wheels, where every Sunday we would have prepared meals for necessitous families, and we continue to treat with the needs of the residents. So persons would have definitely seen the effort, seen the genuine effort to help. And I think that is what, even in the midst of the results, would have given me an edge.
Now, Mr. Morris, you were on the ground working, but the other party was also on the ground working too. I mean, did you expect such a large margin of win, or did you expect the PDP to win by such a large margin?
Well, we knew it would have always been difficult because, you see, we were fighting against a period of a pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic would have brought hardship to many families. And of course, being in government, you are the one that would be blamed for a lot of, you know, the unfortunate circumstances, although you weren't responsible for the outcome. So we knew it would have been difficult, but of course the results were surprising. That, you know, I believe that the policies and the programs and the work that the PNM would have put in over the last 20 years, along with the plans that we would have put forward to the people of Tobago, we thought that it would have been sufficient going forward. But unfortunately, the cry for change would have been overwhelming, and therefore the outcome was quite surprising.
Now, Mr. Morris, the legislature, of course, will be in effect for about 4 years. What do you think the party can do at this point to ensure that within the next 4 years that they could, you know, retain their followers and, of course, sway the ones who would have moved away from the PNM party?
Well, the PNM is consistently resilient, and you would recall that this is not an unfamiliar position for the People's National Movement. We would have had such a situation in 1984 with William Mackenzie right here in Tobago, and even with Mr. Patrick Augustus Manning in 1986. And we in the PNM, we are prepared to serve this country in and out of government. So we would continue to regroup, rebuild, and also we will continue to do the introspection required so that we can be better prepared to serve all of Tobago going forward.
Now, Mr. Morris, I wanted to get your thoughts on this because thus far we've had about five people resigning from the Executive Council of the PNM. Now, one political analyst is saying it's good that they're resigning because somebody, of course, has to take responsibility for the outcome of the elections. But then we have the PNM Tobago Council leader, Mrs. Davidson Celestin, who's saying maybe the resignations are a bit haphazard. What are your views on this?
Well, my view is this is a time for the party to heal and rebuild, and not so much for the party to be at a point where we are basically pointing fingers or the blame game. Now is a time for us to really take sober reflection. And I am confident that we will be able to do such, and the party will be stronger. We will emerge stronger as a result.
Now, Mr. Morris, are you concerned that because you're the lone representative in the Tobago House of Assembly, that maybe some of the things you want for your constituents may not happen because, of course, you're going to be the lone person there?
Well, a lot of the initiatives that I usually put forward are initiatives that are outside of the normal functions of the Tobago House of Assembly. So there's some things I would be able to do on my own with the support, of course, of the People's National Movement. And then there will be some things I look forward to, because you would recall on the campaign hustings, the PDP did indicate that they will be giving $10 million to each constituency. So I could quite imagine and welcome the fact that the electoral district of Darrell Spring Wim will also benefit from that $10 million allocation. So I'm not all concerned at this point, but I would continue to advocate and ensure that the PDP fulfills their election promises, because you would also recall that they did indicate as well that they will be paying all public servants an ex gratia payment, and we are now for Christmas. And we are now out 12 days before Christmas. So I'm going to be calling on the PDP to ensure that they fulfill that promise, because a lot of Tobagonians voted on the premise that they will get that ex gratia payment.
Now, Mr. Morris, you mentioned that $10 million that they said that every district would get. I mean, if you are given that for your district, any ideas on how you want to spend that thus far?
Well, of course, we would utilize it. We would want to treat with some of the infrastructural challenges in the electoral district, the basics, ensuring that our roads are well maintained, drainage, and retaining walls. We'd also really want to utilize some of that for employment opportunities as well, because, you know, throughout the electoral district, amongst the youth especially, there are some employment challenges. So we hope that we can utilize it for infrastructural upgrades, and as well as ensuring that our young people are employed.
I like that you talked about the employment, because I know the employment was one of the main factors that you were driving in your campaign. Now, Mr. Morris, in terms of some of the initiatives that the PDP would like to bring to the table, especially as we consider, you know, the fact that there are, that we now have the discussion of autonomy into the mix, what do you think are some of the areas that the PDP should really focus on as a way to push Tobago forward?
Well, of course, I would quite imagine that they would want to focus on the development of our private sector, you know, and growing the private sector, ensuring that the private sector contributes more to Tobago's GDP. I am also going to be ensuring that that Marriott project is continued, because I think that project will do a lot for our tourism sector as well, in terms of growing our product. Our tourism product on the island. I've heard the Chief Secretary indicated that the project did not have consultation amongst Tobagonians, and that is not a correct statement. So I'm hoping that is not an indication that they are going to derail this project like how they derailed Sanders. So I will be standing up with the rest of Tobago to ensure such projects are continued, and that they really focus on developing Tobago's private sector.
Now, Mr. Morris, looking at what happened last week, Monday, a lot of people are saying that this might be an indication of what could happen in Trinidad. Do you think there's any relation between the two about what happened in Tobago, and if it's a possibility it may happen here?
Well, we are in a pandemic, and I'm saying pandemic circumstances will also give rise to the change movement, and the wind of change would have really swept across Tobago. I am sure that, of course, my counterparts in Trinidad will take note and make the necessary adjustments going forward to ensure that such wind does not really sweep away Trinidad as well. So I'm quite confident that what is required will be done to ensure that, the People's National Movement remains the government of choice in Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, Mr. Morris, in terms of a counselor, can you just remind me if you chose one? Was it Petal you chose as your counselor, and why was she given a choice to serve alongside with you?
So yes, I chose Mrs. Petal Daniel Benoit, who is a chartered management accountant, and she also has vast knowledge within the financial sector and within the financial management of the Tobago House of Assembly. I think at this point in time, it was important to go with someone who is quite new and someone who also reposes a lot of experience at the same time, so that we are able to chart, a new course inside of the Tobago House of Assembly legislature.
And Mr. Morris, finally, anything else you want to add? Anything you want to tell your constituents? Anything you want to tell the people of Tobago as, of course, you move into this new legislature as the lone person for the PNM?
Well, I firstly want to speak to my constituents, the people of Darrell Spring Wim. I want to thank them for their support and for reposing trust in Kelvon Morris as their representative. I would also want to speak directly to all of Tobago. This is a time for us to work together, hand in hand, in the best interests of Tobago. So rest assured, as minority leader, I will continue to ensure that we keep the government of the day honest and in check. But at the same time, I would ensure that we work together to ensure that Tobago's development is pursued in a sustainable way. I also want to extend at this time congratulations to my schoolmate and colleague, Chief Secretary Fali Augustine, who got married yesterday. So I want to wish him and his lovely wife all the best in their endeavors going forward.
Now, Mr. Morris, I know I told you final question, but I didn't know that Mr. Augustine was your schoolmate. How was he in school?
Fali was always an excellent student, always one to be asking the probing questions, and I'm not surprised the pathway that he would have taken and his success, and I continue to wish him all the best. Of course, on this side, I would continue to ensure that we provide the kind of support that would keep them honest and would keep them in check and make sure that they work in the best interests of Tobago.
Mr. Morris, thank you so much for joining us on the Now Morning Show. And of course, good luck in all your endeavors. Good luck in being the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly. And I wish you all the success, you and your counselor, on your journey.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day.